Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there was a king who loved beautiful clothes more than anything else. Because he thought he was so handsome, he needed clothes that matched his good looks. Every day, he would spend hours in his royal wardrobe, trying on the finest robes, coats, and trousers made from the most luxurious fabrics. The king had no interest in the affairs of the kingdom, not even in attending meetings with his advisors. His greatest pleasure was to parade through the streets in new clothes, hoping to impress his subjects with his gorgeous attire. His love of clothes was so intense that he would often spend all his money on buying the latest styles of clothing, leaving little for anything else. The king believed that looking good was the most important thing in the world, so he was always determined to dress his best. But no matter how hard he tried, he could never find clothes beautiful enough to satisfy him, and this made him very unhappy. The king silently vowed to himself that he would find clothes worthy of his handsome appearance. One day, 2 tailors arrived at the palace, and it was said that they were the best in the entire kingdom. They promised the king that only they could make clothes worthy of him. However, the clothes came at a steep price, and only foolish people wouldn't be able to see them. The king eagerly agreed. The 2 tailors immediately got to work, or at least they pretended to. For days and days, they were busy moving their hands, threading needles, and working the loom. But no matter how hard they seemed to be working, the loom remained completely empty. Not a single thread appeared on the fabric, and yet, they acted as if they were weaving the most magnificent cloth the world had ever seen. The emperor was curious to know the progress, so he sent his ministers to check out the cloth. But when the ministers arrived, they saw nothing. The loom was just as bare as when it was first installed. Still, none of them dared to admit it. After all, anyone who couldn't see the cloth would be considered unfit for their position or just plain stupid. So the ministers returned to the emperor and praised the invisible cloth, describing its bright colors and beautiful patterns, just as the tailor had taught them. And so, the emperor was even more eager to wear this extraordinary cloth that no one dared to admit they couldn't see. The long-awaited moment has finally come. The 2 tailors, full of excitement, proudly hold up a beautifully crafted silver platter, showing off the so-called new clothes, even though they are completely invisible. The king's heart beat fast with anticipation, but as he looked at the empty plate, a wave of doubt came over him. However, he could not admit that he saw nothing, because that would mean he was unfit to be king. So the king nodded his approval, pretending to admire the non-existent clothes. The ministers didn't want to seem foolish, so they all started praising the invisible clothes. They nodded enthusiastically, each one eager to prove how smart they were. Now, fully convinced of the grandeur of his magnificent new attire, the king decided he must display this one-of-a-kind masterpiece to his entire kingdom. The emperor decides to show off his new clothes in a grand procession through the city. He marches proudly, believing he is wearing a magnificent outfit, though he is in fact naked. It was clear to everyone that the emperor had no clothes on, but no one dared to say it out loud. They were either afraid of making the emperor angry or worried that they might be the foolish ones who couldn't see his clothes. Just then, a little girl in the crowd suddenly started giggling and shouted, "The emperor isn't wearing any clothes." As soon as she spoke, other kids joined in, laughing and shouting, "The emperor has no clothes! The emperor has no clothes!" And so, the emperor continued his parade, his face flushed with embarrassment, but he could no longer ignore the truth. the crowd's laughter rang out louder than ever, for even the most powerful can be fooled by their own pride. From that day on, the emperor learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes, the wisest words come from the smallest voices. The two tailors left the palace with a chest full of gold, and they generously shared all the coins with the poor people in the town. This story teaches us 9 important lessons. Each one helps us understand how to be better people, make wiser choices, and appreciate what really matters in life. First, be honest. It's important to speak the truth, even when it's difficult or when others are afraid to do so. Second, don't be afraid to speak up. If something doesn't seem right, don't be afraid to say what you think, just like the little girl in the story. Third, think for yourself. Don't just follow what everyone else is doing or saying, make sure to use your own judgment. Fourth, pride can fool you. The emperor was so proud that he ignored the obvious. We should be humble and willing to listen to others. Fifth, wisdom can come from anyone. Even the youngest or smallest among us can have the wisest words. Listen to everyone, no matter their age. Sixth, true leadership. The emperor cared only about his appearance and ignored the needs of his country and people. A true leader should focus on the well-being of the people, not just on their own pride and vanity. Seventh, 2 sides of deceit. The 2 tailors, though they deceived the emperor, chose to share their reward with the town's poor. Their actions show us that even those labeled as tricksters can perform acts of kindness and generosity. It reminds us not to judge solely by appearances and to recognize the complexity behind every action. True kindness comes from the heart, not titles or labels. Eighth, true beauty comes from within. This story imparts a timeless lesson. When choosing friends, we should not be lured by superficial appearances. Those who may seem glamorous on the outside but lack depth of character will never offer genuine warmth or support. True beauty is found within, not in the shallow allure of outward appearance. Ninth, the lesson of vanity. If the emperor hadn't been so vain and eager to show off, he wouldn't have paraded through the streets and become a laughingstock. His vanity led him to this embarrassing situation. This story teaches us that showing off and being vain don't earn us true respect. Instead, they reveal our flaws. Real confidence comes from inner strength and humility, not from trying to impress others with appearances. Ultimately, this story teaches us that honesty, courage to speak up, independent thinking, humility, and inner kindness are the keys to becoming truly valuable individuals. True beauty comes from within, not from appearances. True leaders care about the well-being of their people, not their vanity, and wisdom can come from anyone, even the most unassuming person.